he came out and he said, it's unbelievable. America is back. And it just felt that way.
Seems like the audience thought that too. I mean, the polls, I think every guest on the show has mentioned the CBS poll today. 76% of people.
Because it's really so
it's good.
Satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, I will say usually those polls typically don't work well for Republicans. Like, who won the debate? It's almost always Democrats, even when it's obvious Republicans won the debate. That was one of the reasons you knew Trump won the debate against Biden so easily, because the polling actually showed he won it. Like, even when, if a Republican wins, it still usually shows that Democrats win those polls. It's kind of the same feeling I have with this one. And part of it, I think there's several factors. Let me run these by you real quick, Glenn, on this. So one is one of the first things people saw in that speech was Al Green disrupting it. Yes. And people hate that. Yes, the hardcore super AOC fans will like it, and Al Green will get lots of donations because of his quote unquote bravery, standing up, resistance, blah blah blah. It will work for Al Green, but the incentives here are screwed up because it works against his party and it works for Donald Trump as well.
It does.
And so I think part of the reason is a lot of people probably watched the first 15 minutes of the speech and that's it. And they saw that and they were annoyed by him. So I think that's
and they were
part
annoyed.
of it.
They're like, oh, it's the same crap.
Just let it go. Come on. I want to hear what he's saying.
I know.
You're wasting my time, right?
I feel that way on applause.
Yeah.
I hate the applause. I'd rather have the cut version with all the applause out because I get it. Just please. I just want somebody to say, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, please save your applause till the end.
Yeah.
I just want that.
I would like the first line of that speech to be from the president being like, look, I got a lot to get through. Please don't applause.
Yeah.
No applause. But I mean, it's hard. It's a trapping of that thing. Secondarily, people are speculating, just like when we don't really want to watch the Biden State of the Union, maybe a lot of Democrats just didn't tune in. So the group watching it were more Republican. Now, CBS did this poll. They should be correcting for that. I have not gone through their methodology of that poll, but that shouldn't be the factor. If it is the factor, it's a really sloppy job by CBS. The other thing, though, I think is what you were getting at in that, number one, it was pretty optimistic. It wasn't the American Carnage speech from 2017.
Right.
It was a really optimistic speech. As much as we, I think, as jaded media members get a little tired of like, oh, here's 19 people in the audience, we're going to tell their stories. I do think that connects with people. A lot of those stories are really compelling, terrible, and great
and inspiring
at the same time. Yeah. So I think he did a good job, which was part of it. And also, like, I think the Democratic opposition, as it usually does, backfired.
I had horrible pain in my hands. I had a hard time moving them. I could barely work with them. I couldn't write or type or anything. I tried everything. Then I found Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free supplement developed by doctors, and it's safe to take daily. It made a real impact for me and so many others. Try their 3-week quick start now, $19.95 at relieffactor.com.
So, in a big way, because this is one of the things that they're saying. That's what Al Green was talking about. He's like, he didn't have a mandate. That's what he was shouting from the floor, in case you didn't hear, because I didn't know, nor did I care what he was saying. You don't have a mandate, and I've got my cane, and I'm going to scream at the moon in a minute. But he said, you don't have a mandate. This is something that the left is trying out, that there was no mandate. Listen to Stephen A. Smith as he schools The View on the mandate thing.
And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever, and he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate. We can sit up there and play around all we want to. In 2020, Trump didn't win the popular vote. He didn't win the electoral college vote. A matter of fact, the Republicans hadn't won the popular vote, if I remember correctly, since 2004. But they did this year. So 20 years after they last won the popular vote, they won the popular vote. They won the electoral college vote. The man won every swing state. And on top of it all, 89% of the counties shifted against. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate. There's a mandate.
Well, it's a different definition of a mandate, I guess.
Well, it's my definition of a mandate. You know, you got to go with my definition. We're The View. We make up our own definitions for words.
I mean, I think two things can be true on this, too. I think you can recognize that it was a relatively close election. It wasn't Reagan versus Mondale. That's not what it was. But it can still be a mandate.
But you know what?
He did shift all these demographic groups. He did, I think, if I remember correctly, every single state shifted toward him. Now, that doesn't mean he won all the states, obviously, but the states shifted toward to Republicans. So, that's a big movement. I think a mandate is fair in this context. He did win every swing state. Again, those swing states weren't blowouts. It wasn't a 12-point victory in Michigan.
89% of the counties moved his way. And look, you have to add one thing to this, and that's after an 8-year period of everyone with any kind of voice or power saying he's a criminal, he's a sex abuser, whatever they could come on. That's all they said about him. And his support grows. Yeah, Can you imagine if they would have just treated him like they treated Ronald Reagan, which they treated Ronald Reagan poorly. You know, he's stupid, he doesn't get it, he's old, blah, blah, blah. But they never did this. Nobody's ever gone through this. For that to move and him to grow and him to have the whole thing just kind of switch over, win the popular vote, win the electoral college, that is a mandate.
I think that's totally fair. You know, I think if you look at it, I mean, I think Biden won in 2020 in the popular vote by something like 4.5%, something like that. And it moved to 1.5% towards Trump. It's a 6-point move. And in the current American system, which is pretty polarized when it comes to party, that is a massive shift. That is not a tiny little thing. And I think that, I think that totally qualifies as a mandate. That doesn't mean it wasn't a close election. Again, like Trump had to win one of those blue wall states. The biggest blowout of those blue wall states was 2%. I mean, we could have been stuck with Kamala Harris right now. That is not crazy. It was close. That being said, what he's done here, and I think how the way he did it, which was, as Stephen A. Smith points out, moving a lot of demographic groups that don't normally even consider Republicans as part of that large move toward him. I mean, I think it'd be silly to just deny it. They want to do that because they want to deny that anything happening is supported by anyone other than evil Nazis.
Yes.
But that's not the reality here.
And it's not even Donald Trump. You know, you could say that some of that movement came because the Democrats are so out of step with reality.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
People were like, I can't vote for the other side.
I think that's a huge part of it.
I think it's huge.
And remember, we're talking
about... And they're just doubling down on it again.
And we're talking about an election where we have, a 2-seat majority, now 2.5-seat majority in Congress. You know, it's close, relatively close in the Senate. This is, we are in a very divided time in government. And I don't mean that like as far as, everyone's polarized. I mean, like, it's close. We are in a close period. And that's kind of one of the things that's been remarkable about this first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
He's been able to get through a lot, maintain his popularity generally, even though we're in a situation that's that divided. And that's kind of one of the most impressive parts of the first 6 weeks.
Let me show you again one of the reasons why I think he was so effective last night. He's not vengeful. He's not making enemies lists. He's not doing anything like that. He's just speaking the truth. Listen to this, where he's talking about Joe Biden.
And we have ended weaponized government, where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good.
I mean, it's fantastic. Fantastic. The other thing I think is was so good, and I want to play both of these. On my sheet, it's cut 24. Trump lays out some of the ways DOGE has discovered. I want to play this because I think the guy could be a comedian, and a really good comedian. His timing is so incredibly good. His ad-libs are hysterical. Listen to him talk about the waste.
Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of.
This is so
$60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America.
Afro-Colombian.
$8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program. $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her?
I think they're going to investigate. I think she might go to jail.
A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. You know what we're doing. Should use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education. The most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams, and they're far worse, but I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about them.
It was an amazing list that common sense ruled the night, including when he talked about the border. Listen to this.
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
It's a good line.
Unbelievable.
The listing quickly of all the different things went on and on and on and on and on, and it reminded me of Family Guy. You know the cartoon Family Guy.
Yeah.
There's a place where there's a scene where there's a dead frog in his room, and he's trying to scoop it up and push it out the window with like a piece of cardboard. And every time he does it, the frog kind of flops off and keeps coming down, and it goes on and on and on and on. And after a while, it just becomes so funny because it's going on so long. And that's kind of how I felt in that moment. It was like, he could have used 3 of those examples and made the point, but he just beat it into your head. This is insanity, and it has to stop.